Good to see you. Hello, good morning. Good morning, good morning. So we still have a few folks trickling in, and that's to be expected. We have over 450 classes signed up today, and so we're really excited to have you guys and to see you virtually speaking, of course. We're going to go over just a few housekeeping things before we get started and let some of our friends join us on some of our other feeds. So first and foremost, this is a webinar. So this may be a little bit different to some of the normal Zoom protocol that you're used to. You will not see the other classes. All you will see is the presentation and our presenters and anything that we're feeding out to you. So you won't see all 450 boxes in the background. Hi, Mrs. Randall from Davis. So we are going to be going out to a walnut orchard and huller today. During that time, if you guys have questions, we would love to be able to answer those. Go ahead and put those in the Q&A box if you're joining us via Zoom. If you see a question that you also want answered, you don't have to retype that question. Just simply hit the like or the thumbs up button, and that'll shoot your comment to the top so we can get those answered for you. If you're joining us on YouTube or Facebook, YouTube has a Q&A box as well that should be live. You guys can certainly filter in there. And then Facebook, go ahead and just put your questions in the comments. Teachers, you should have been emailed a student worksheet. It is also on our website and it is pinned at the top of the chat here for you. Your students can use that to follow along if you would like them to do so. And then lastly, we are recording this. So it'll be recorded for future use. If you have an AM, PM class and you want your PM students to be able to see, we will have this recorded and it'll be sent out to all registrants. So we're up to like 327 on Zoom. So that's awesome. Welcome, guys. We're really excited to see you and to have you here today. I'm going to briefly take you guys out to the farm. We're going to introduce our farmers to you, let them tell you who they are and what they do. And then we're going to come back and talk some nutritional facts. And then we'll go back to the farm for the remainder of our tour. So I think we have our farmers out here from Grower's Choice. We have Brandon, Evan, and Rob. So if we can go out to the farm and we'll say hi to them and see what they're up to. Hi guys, are you there at the farm?
Yep, we're here.
Awesome. Well, if you guys can introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do, that would be great.
Okay, I'm Robert Longstreth. I'm the father of those two. I'm a grower. Of course, we're all growers in this area with the three of us. I had three sons. Two chose to came back to the farm. One did not. These two are with us here. And in this operation, we kind of specialize in areas. So I guess I'm getting pushed out of the regular day-to-day operations more into the financial and contract type thing. Brandon here, he's in charge of several procedures. He does sprays, herbicides, fertilizers, and he also is in charge of nut harvest, the pickup portion of it. Evan here, he also is involved. He does irrigation systems, pruning towers, and he also helps in removal of trees. But his program today is going to be about the nut huller and dehydrator. Go ahead and.
Good morning, I'm Brandon Longstreth. As Dad said, I take care of a lot of the chemical aspects and the mechanical aspects of growing the walnuts. And during harvest, I do a lot of the process of picking it up and delivering it to Evan. Morning, guys. I'm Evan Longstreth. I'm the middle brother. There's three of us. I'm the middle one. And I'm mainly in charge of the walnut huller. This is the walnut huller and dehydrator. This is from when at the final stages of the walnut harvesting process. That's when they come to me and I take care of it from there. Otherwise, out in the field, I usually do, like they always told, I was being told, pruning towers. I do irrigation. I'm really kind of responsible to irrigate all the trees on our fields. So that's just kind of the little backgrounds that I do. And just a little, what irrigation is he means watering the trees.
That's right.
That's a really good idea to say that.
Can you guys tell us how many acres of walnuts and almonds, depending on where you're at in our county? How many do you guys manage and take care of?
So currently we're spread from Waterford all the way up north to about Copperopolis Road, Lodi, Linden area. And we are covering currently close to 6,000 acres of almonds and walnuts and a little bit of cherries also.
Wow. That sounds like quite the project that you guys have on a annual basis. So we are going to go back now. We're going to talk about a little bit of the nutritional aspects of walnuts and almonds walnuts. And we're going to let you guys go take your places in the farm. And then we'll come back and check in with you momentarily, if you will. Hi, guys. I see a few new faces. Welcome. Hi, Deanne. Welcome. Thank you guys for coming. So we're going to talk just real briefly about some
You know what? Why don't you give it to me anyway?
We're going to talk real briefly about some of the nutritional aspects of walnuts. So first and foremost, walnuts are considered a specialty crop. Specialty crops are defined as fruits, vegetables, tree nuts, dried fruit, horticulture, nursery, and nursery crops. So walnuts are in fact a specialty crop. So that's part of why we're going to cover it today. Additionally, walnuts have a huge impact. Walnuts have a huge impact in our county. So we are in San Joaquin County of California, and there's a little map that you should be seeing. And that red circle on the map, that is San Joaquin County for those joining us either out of our county or out of state altogether. So some fast facts for you. And if you're following along on our worksheet, students, these will be some of the fill in the blank answers that you're looking for. So in 2019, walnuts were the 4th highest grossing commodity in San Joaquin County. I mean, you can see the figures there on our walnuts. So walnuts are a very vital part of our San Joaquin County agricultural economy. And then if you look here at the state, San Joaquin County is number 1 in walnut production. So a lot of the walnuts that are produced in our county, in our state, are produced right here in San Joaquin County. So if you take it out just like a little bit more globally and look at just the US, more than 99% of the walnuts in the US are actually grown in the Central Valley of California. So that's part of why we're covering walnuts today. Walnuts are a huge mainstay in our local agricultural economy and what we do here. And so we can't grow them all over the state, all over the country. They take a very specific climate. And so that's why we're going to chat about it. Not only are they super vital to our economy, but they're vital to the health for us as consumers. You can see on the next little slide that we have for you, walnuts are super high in omega-3 fat, which is great for heart health. And they're also super high in protein. So doctors and walnut growers across the country and state recommend that you have a handful of walnuts or about 12 walnuts, which is 1 ounce, every day to keep the doctor away, if you will. So those are just some fast facts for you. We see some questions coming in. So we will get to those when we kind of cover those topics. So I think now, without further ado, we've covered some of the nutritional aspects and some of those things. So now let's get to some of the fun stuff. Let's see how we actually produce and grow walnuts. I think that that's going to be super exciting for you guys to see. So we're going to take it back to the farm. And I think Farmer Rob is ready to discuss some things with us. Hi, Farmer Rob. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. I can hear you very well, Krista.
Awesome. Perfect. Well, can you tell us how it is? So you're standing at one of your walnut orchards right now in Escalon, California, which is very far south, San Joaquin County. Can you tell us real quick and give us an overview of how it is that you plant your orchards to produce the walnuts that you're standing next to?
Thanks, Chris. I'll do that. First of all, I want to talk about agriculture. Agriculture, a lot of times, gets a bad name. And really, agriculture, the definition of it is the culture of plants and animals for food and fiber. And for the kids, this is fiber. Your pants are fiber, the hat's fiber. Food is everything we eat every day. The walnut we eat and the food that we eat out of the walnut. That's food. The food is something we supply the world. For example, almonds, 80% of the almonds consumed in the world come from this valley, San Joaquin Valley. So it's a tremendous food source for the world that we have all over. So that's a real big thing. So anyway, if my cameraman could shoot down the row here just a little bit, he pans over, you can see the trees, how they're planted, and I'll get how we get to that far, but we'll just kind of give you an idea what a young orchard looks like. And then as he comes back, he can shoot that orchard across the street. And you can kind of see, I don't know if you can see that, it's pretty far away, but you can see an orchard that's a full-grown, mature orchard of walnuts. So you know that we have a long ways to go to get to that spot. We start off with a tree. This is called a 2-year-old grafted bare root tree. There are lots of other things. I'm not going to get real technical with it, but this tree has actually got 2 trees in one. It actually was cut here. So we have a root that is providing us with all the great characteristics of a root, but doesn't produce anything that's very edible. They're very hard or very inefficient. So we put on the top a portion of the tree that is very edible and very efficient to eat. So we get we get 2 trees in one every time we plant a tree. There are some sciences where they do a certain tree that's one type, but I would say 99% of the trees, maybe more, that are planted in this valley are of 2 types, 2 different trees. There's a problem we had back in World War II. I'm sorry, I'm getting a little delay on how to put an orchard in, but this gives you a little history. But in World War II, we had a problem. Our consumption of food was starting to meet our production. Our production's here and our consumption was meeting. So that meant that we were starting to run out of food sources. Then we were able to create artificial nitrogen, and our production jumped up way above consumption. Today, we are now coming back to that same critical point. It's up to us to try to find ways to reuse water, nutrition, varieties, grafting, all we can to produce enough food with the same amount of inputs. So that kind of gets you an idea where we are. Food is getting to be, in the world, is getting to be a tight commodity. And we need to be able to produce more food for our consumers worldwide, as well as here. Anyway, when we start this orchard, we started off with a little tree like that, but originally, first of all, we have to go and we have to prepare the ground. If the ground has had an orchard in it previously, our problem are soil pests. There are several that are very, very detrimental to the production of the new orchard that's being put in. So we have to clean the soil. So we have to inject a fumigant that will knock these predators of the tree out so that we can have a very healthy product and a very efficient growth of products so that we can sell it at a reasonable price. Our products are not sold under our prices. They're sold on what the market gives us. So we always bend to whatever the desires are of the public. If the public does not want walnuts, then we will change to something else and grow something else. But we don't get to set a price on it. It's just the price is given to us is what we get. So once the ground is clean and we have a nice clean ground, when we do that by ripping it, you see these big tractors, a lot of steel, a lot of horsepower, 700 horsepower, and they'll pull a piece of steel about 6 to 8 inches wide, 6-7 feet long through the ground and break it. And that's where we get the fumigate well. Also breaks up any structure changes in the soil. That means if the soil's fine on top and coarse on the bottom, it mixes those well. So that gives us a good environment for the new tree to go in. Then we go ahead and we'll level that out, prepare it for planting. We'll plant our tree in the tree row. And I showed you the row earlier, so you can see how it's nice and straight. So those trees get planted in. And then we go to irrigation installation.
Hey, Farmer Rob, we have a question. How far apart are their trees planted? How far apart from each other? How many feet?
Very good. Good question. That varies on the variety that we're putting it in, the ground we're working with, and the grower. He has different ideas. The closer that we can plant the tree together, the faster we get into production. But the negatives are the higher cost to install it and the higher cost later on down the road. So these trees right here are 25 foot in the row spacing is 25 feet, and they are 23 feet in the row. And then we've offset them. You'll notice that there's a tree here where normally there should be one here, but we didn't. We offset them just a little bit. And that's to kind of help in sunlight. Our trouble with orchards are that we are actually not farming the ground. We're actually farming the sunlight. We only have so much sunlight in which to work with. we can always put more trees in, we can always do more water, we can always do more nutrition, but the acre of sunlight is what we're farming. So we're trying to catch, like the solar panels you see all over the place, we're doing the same thing. We're trying to catch that photosynthetic rays to produce carbohydrates, which in turn turns out to be my walnut, the seed of the plant. And we eat the seed of the plant. That's what we do. So this orchard has 76 trees the acre, and we have planted up to 150 trees the acre.
So now we've planted our bare root trees, and then how long does it take after they're planted in order for us to get a harvestable crop? And we talk about trees in terms of their age. We talk about them being a certain leaf. Can you talk to our kids about that a little bit?
Sure. As we talked earlier, the higher concentration of plants per acre brings us in quicker. But this orchard here at this planting spacing, we'll harvest a harvestable crop on year 3. This was unheard of 15 years ago. Today's technology, newer varieties, better ways of planting, advancing things, thinking outside the box has got us to where we can harvest a crop in 3 years. The orchard will probably last, depending where it's planted, it'll probably last anywhere from 22 to 30 years. There's a disease that has come into the area. It's a virus. We've never been able to fix a virus, never been able to cure a virus in human and biotechnology as well as plant. And the virus came in, and this is a virus that limits our production. The tree will kill the tree eventually. So it's about 30 years or 22 years, depending. That's the lifespan of the orchard.
Okay, so after 22 to 30 years, then we have to replace our orchard. So we've planted our trees, we have them, set in our orchard, they're ready to go. After 3 years, we get a harvestable crop. Can you talk to us about every year we go to produce walnuts? So when does pollination happen, and then how long until we're ready to go ahead and harvest our crop?
Thank you, Krista. So what happens is that this tree is now 1 year old, and we will start to get buds on the sides that will produce a male portion of the flower. This flower is not complete. It has a male and a female on different portions of the tree. It's not all in one unit. So the male portion is a catkin, which produces the pollen, which is the male portion. And then the tip of the buds, and on this tree, on the laterals, a lot of the laterals too, because it's very high lateral fruitful. But on the tip and some of the side buds will also produce the female portion, or the pistillate. So the pollen by wind transfers to the pistillate and impregnates the embryo and fertilizes the embryo, and we have a nut. And the nut will form on the side of the tree on that little flower that was bloomed there. The male portion does not produce. It is only there to pollinate the pistillate.
And what month does this pollination happen?
Very good. It starts in March. So about March is where we have this pollination going on. March, April, right in there it starts, and it'll go, and we'll grow this tree through the summer. And we're very concerned about insect pests that become a problem. I was going across the neighbors here, and I broke some walnuts over just to get these walnuts, just to kind of look till you could look at them. And I was seeing that there were 3 walnuts that had worms in them. Of course, you guys don't want to eat them with worms, so we can't sell them. So we have to protect the tree from worms in the walnuts. We also have to protect the tree itself, not just its product, but the tree itself from other problems too, mites, aphid, things like that. And so we grow that tree from that March, April area, and then it goes through the summer protecting it and irrigating it. Irrigation was not something we really talked about very much, but irrigation, it's getting very, very, water is short, and we have to be very efficient with water, and we've done a great job with the water efficiency. And so some people talk about drip, and they say, oh, drip is the end of that's the world, that's what we all do, but it is in some places and isn't. We're using different types of programs. This program that we have here is actually what they call a macro irrigation system, which is kind of like the sprinkler system in your lawn, but this is done very scientifically, and the water is distributed very evenly. And we irrigate. This orchard will take about 3.5 acre feet in which to irrigate for a year. An acre foot is 325,000 gallons. So, you're supposed to drink, as you kids know, you're supposed to be drinking and being hydrated all day. And we're supposed to drink as much as 4 gallons a day. Well, this is, if you took the 4 gallons and you think about 325,000 gallons, that's what this orchard needs in a year in order to survive.
Hey, Farmer
So
Rob, we have some questions here, and then I think we're going to start talking about harvest. So for
Okay.
our students following along, so pollination starts and happens in about March, and then by October, the end of October, we hope to have most, if not all, of our walnuts harvested. So that's about how long it takes. So that's about 6 to 7 months, depending on the variety. So for those following along, it takes about 7 months. So Jenny, that was her question: is how long does it take? So to summarize, Farmer Rob, for you, pollination is in March, and then harvest happens in October. How
Jenny.
many nuts are produced from one tree?
Oh, yeah, that's a good question. I've not ever counted them, but we'll get about 3.5 tons, which is 7,000 pounds. A nut, you get about 33 to a pound. So I'm sure that you guys can do the math for me and figure out how many nuts, and then don't forget to divide by 76 trees to the acre, and that'll give you a rough count of how many nuts per tree.
Rob, Farmer Rob, can you hold up that walnut for us, and maybe we can zoom in? We have someone who wants to see real up close and personal what a walnut looks like. So that's what a walnut looks like. We also have some pictures. So can you real quick, when we have a walnut that's growing on the tree, it actually doesn't look like that, right, Farmer Rob? There's a green hole around that nut, and when it starts to split, that's when it's about time to harvest. So I think we're going to jump over to Brandon, who's going to show us some super cool equipment and how we actually get that nut that we produced in its green hole, how we get that to what's the next step in the process. So we've grown our nuts. They're still in the hole and on the tree. So now what's the next step, Farmer Brandon? Can you kind of walk us through the next step in the process after we've grown our nuts?
Yep. Can you hear me all right, Krista?
You can. Thank you so much.
Great. So good morning, everybody. So now, like Krista said, it's taken us 6-7 months to produce this walnut. That's why it's so important for us to really pay attention to what we're doing, because it's a lot of time and money invested trying to produce this walnut. Now it's that time we get to go check the huller or get it ready to go and see if they're ready to be harvested. We'll go take a look at all the equipment right here. So the technology is really advanced lately. I mean, in the last 20 years, it's just become really great how easy it is to harvest walnuts and whatnot. And we've done a lot to make ourselves faster, more efficient, and make the walnut cleaner as we pick it up. Starting off, Krista was talking about walnuts. This is what the walnut looks like. But when it's on the tree, this is the hole she's talking about. You can see that walnut sitting in there, but this walnut was actually sitting on this tree right back over here. We'll take a look. So if you can imagine, there's thousands and thousands of walnuts per tree. Like Dad said, I've never counted myself either, but you could say there's thousands and thousands of walnuts on one tree. They all look like this, just sitting there. When they are all cracked open and ready to go, that's about right. That's when we need to get going. See, that hole just kind of flops off. It's good stuff, ready to go. There's our walnuts. That's what we want to do. Okay. So right now we're going to have, I'm going to have my dad get in the shaker. The first process is grabbing that tree and actually shaking the nuts out of that tree. This is a process that's come a long ways. Before, back in the day, we just used to use poles and hand knock them, pick them up off the ground by hand. We've come a long way since then. Here's what we call a side mount shaker. There's 2 different styles. My dad is actually going to grab the tree with this pillow pad. Come on in, Randy. You can see how this pad actually grabs the tree. These are actually rubber pads. So, because if it was metal, we don't want to hurt that tree. This is like your skin. It's really sensitive. If you had metal pieces here grabbing that tree, it would actually, just like a knife would cut your skin. Same thing here. So we put rubber pads here and some silicone, which is actually like soapy water, to make it kind of move together. They'll clamp on this tree. and he'll actually clamp it to a certain point, and it'll actually shake the whole tree. We stand back here, we'll let him shake that whole tree. And this is the very first process of harvest. These are the first guys that come in. We shake the trees, knock everything off, and if you come look, we actually got walnuts all over the ground now. These are all ready to go to the hauler. We'll watch him shake one more tree, and then we even have some video. That clamps down at a certain pressure. It grabs that tree and just shakes the heck out of it. And you can see all the walnuts and leaves falling off the ground. And he'll go around and he'll do every row, every tree. And it's about 5 to 8 seconds per tree that we do that shaking. I think we got some video too of some more shakers going. Is that right, Krista? Are you guys going to show some?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, here we go. Yeah, so right there, what you guys are looking at, that's the other style of shaker. That's a mono boom. That one goes out the front, and it's the same idea, same everything. We just use those for some bigger trees. But you can see as he's shaking all that stuff coming on. There's the walnuts. And see that green hole I was talking about?
We actually have a question. We actually have a question about that green hole, Brandon. Someone wants to know, why do they have the green thing around them? My understanding, it's about protection, right?
Correct. That's like it's just an extra protective layer from insects, birds, even squirrels. I mean, to an extent, the squirrels will get through that, but no, that's what it is. It's just a protective layer. It's almost like if you had a cut and you put a Band-Aid over it, you just put a protective layer over it. This tree, this nut actually grows its own protective layer, trying to prevent bugs and other things trying to destroy it. So that's the tree's mechanism of trying to reproduce so it can grow new trees, since that's the seed, and keep going.
Awesome. I'm going to jump in real quick and answer a few questions that we have going.
Sure.
Some folks may have joined us a little bit late. So yes, walnuts are super healthy for us. They are super high in omega-3 fats, which is great for heart health.
Yes.
Someone asked us how much protein is in a walnut. So in one serving, which is about 12 to 14 walnut halves, there's 4 grams of protein. Someone wants to know, how big are the walnut trees behind you, Brandon?
So that walnut tree behind me is a good 20 feet up in the air, but they'll actually reach to be 40, 50 feet up in the air. So
wow. So that's
right now I'm just under 6 foot, and you can see that this thing is huge compared to me. And this is not full size. I mean, they're pretty close to full size, but they can get up to about 30, 40, 50 feet.
And so tell us someone wants to know how long a walnut lasts. So it's 22 to 30 years, correct? How long
correct.
A walnut lasts?
So you saw the 1-year-old trees. These ones here are probably about 12 to 15 years old.
That's
and
awesome.
then if they're like 20 to 30 years old, those are the ones that are really big and really good size.
That's awesome. Okay, so we've grown our walnuts. We've talked about that they grow in a green hole that starts to split. We've shaken them off the tree. And then now what happens? Now we have nuts on the ground, and I imagine we need to get the nuts off the ground into somewhere else. Can you talk to us about that?
Correct. We're going to show you right now the video of the walnuts on the ground, and then we go right into a sweeper. The sweeper, I mean, it's like what it says. It's a sweeper. It takes those walnuts that are on the ground, and it actually sweeps them into one big row right down the middle of the tree rows. That right there is a rear view of that sweeper that we're looking at. And what he's doing, that's the end result right there. He's put those walnuts in a big row. He goes up and down one side and down the other to make a nice big row, because next is the pick-up machine. Pick-up machine, just like it sounds, that's what it does. It goes and gets that row. You can see that row we made with the sweeper just a little bit ago. Now this guy is actually coming in. There's a belt underneath the mouth, right below where he's sitting. And that is actually picking up those walnuts, taking the dirt out, taking the leaves out, and even some of the sticks, and throwing it in that cart. You can see that cart with a number 2 on the back. The walnuts are actually getting thrown back there. You can see them falling back inside there. That's exactly what we're trying to do. That's the end product. And after that, next thing you go onto a shuttle unloads that cart, and he dumps them into this elevator. What you're looking at right now is that shuttle. He's dumping them into a big elevator because I got to get them loaded into a truck to take them to the hauler, which is the next step. But see all that right there? Those are all walnuts, thousands, tens of thousands of walnuts going into the back of that truck right there. And then next thing you know, we take that truck, hook it up to a big rig. He goes on down the road, and then we're going to take it to Evan, which is at the hauler. And that's where we get the final product. They actually take that green hull off, wash the walnut, and they go through a drying process. Because if the walnut is not dried, it'll actually start to mold, and it'll get rancid, and it tastes terrible. Trust me, you don't want to eat it.
So speaking of taste, someone wants to know if you can describe the taste of a walnut.
A taste of a walnut. It tastes just like a walnut. It really does.
Okay, and then someone else.
But it's a little crunchy. It's actually a good flavor. They can be a little bitter in the mouth, but they're very good. They're good stuff. They're not like an almond. It's hard to compare it, but they're crunchy, good texture, taste good for you.
Addison Taylor wants to know how many trees you have in total.
Oh, well, here, let me think here real quick. I'll give you a rough average real quick. 6,000 acres times, let's say 100 tree average per acre. That's 600,000. No, I need more than that. It's 6 million trees. I don't know. It's a rough number. I've never counted. We always count by the acre, but there's a lot of darn trees.
And you have
out
about
there.
how many acres of walnuts then do you guys have? Maybe that'd be an easier number.
I probably have like 3,000 acres of walnuts that are gone. 3,000 acres of walnuts.
That's awesome. How long does it take from the time you start shaking those trees to the time you need to get them to the huller?
So that's a good question, because walnuts is really different than almonds. Almonds, you kind of leave them on the ground. You need to let them dry for about a week. That's how that process works. But the walnut, it's very important to get them off the tree and picked up as fast as you can. We're trying to do that. So that shaker that you just saw, when he starts, I want to have those walnuts picked up in that truck and taken to the huller within 24 hours. So one day I have to have that all done, because otherwise they get bad and they change color. Speaking
of the huller, I think it's time that we take our kids out there. So
Perfect.
What we're going to see next, guys, is Evan is going to take us out to Triple L Hulling in Escalon, and we're going to see what happens after we get those walnuts. We've grown our walnuts. Takes us 6 to 7 months to grow them. We have shaken them off the tree. We've swept them into windrows. We've picked them up. We've put them on our trailer, and now we're going to see where they go. So let's go ahead and see what happens next.
Hi there, my name's Evan Longstreth with Triple L Hulling here at Escalon, and I'm going to take you through the process of hulling and drying walnuts. And basically what happens is when the walnuts are harvested in the field, they come through our plant, come into our plant right here, and if you turn around, you can look at the trucks coming in right here. So these are all full with walnuts that just came from the field, and the idea of this is to separate the green hull from the actual walnut. And we're going to go take a look at this here real quickly and show. Right now we're late in the season, so a lot of the green hull has actually been removed. But if you were looking at it right here, all these walnuts with the green hull on it, the idea is to remove that hull like that, is to get all that out. See, these walnuts are actually very clean right now. Some other ranches that come in, they're full of sticks, they're full of debris and trash. And so the idea of the huller is to remove all the trash out and get a good clean walnut like that and actually dry down the meats to a certain moisture percentage so they are safe for storage and ready for cracking and going into stores and actually going on your tables for dinner at night and stuff like that. So what happens here is that the trucks come in from the field and they come down here on top of the pit right here, and they get opened up. And then they come up an elevator. And what happens they go up in the elevator, and then that is actually what feeds the hulling line here. This is the initial start process of getting the walnuts through the hulling line. And these controls here, these two controls, I actually can control the speed of the huller. I can control the speed at which the huller is being fed, and I can control the speed in which this elevator is being loaded. So there's a couple of things that I have to work at with every single truck coming in is know how fast I want the plant to run, how trashy it is, and how much other problems there are with it. And I can control it with the touch of a button. So coming up now, we're coming up to our above ground pit. This is basically a buffer zone, as you will, as what we call it, is a buffer zone that fills up with walnuts. And this is what keeps the whole holding lines fed. In this plant, I have 2 holding lines. If you look out behind me, it comes out the bottom of this above ground pit and goes onto our holding line. This is an actual ag web belt that are feeding the actual holding lines. And if you look on both sides, you can see you have 2 lines of exactly the same thing. This is where the process starts of cleaning the walnuts out. So now we're gonna actually come back down here and we'll start actually showing you what these lines do. And right now, this plant, we built this plant in 2012, so this is its 8th season. And any give or taken year, the last 2 years, we've actually ran over 8,000 tons of walnuts every year. To put that in perspective, that's 16 million pounds. So it's a lot of walnuts that actually come through this plant every year. And on any given day, I will run about 100,000 pounds an hour when it's at its height of its speed. So we're gonna come back over here, come through the actual holding lines right now. This is the setup where everything starts. So we're gonna come back up to this area. So where you saw earlier, the above ground pit, the walnuts going on the ag web belt, this is a divider right here that divides both lines, holding lines. There's 2 actual holding lines side by side. They're sisters of each other. And this is where the walnuts are being divided from line to line. Then when the walnuts go on to get divided onto one line or to another, they come onto a desticker. They come up to a desticker right here. This is a desticker. So the walnuts are going down on it. You watch the little sticks being kept on these actual square tubing. The walnuts fall through, but the sticks, like that stick right there, it's going to go out to the end. It gets dumped off and it goes into our stick bin. And each line is the same way. Every line is identical. Then the walnuts get dropped through onto another back belt. This piece of equipment right here is what we call an aspirator. So this is like a giant vacuum is what this is. What happens is that the walnuts go through, they fall through an air leg, and any light debris or leaves or junk that's extremely light gets sucked out and goes into the trash. Now these walnuts here, now here's something that's interesting about walnuts, is that this process is a wet process, unlike almonds. Almonds are a dry process. Walnuts have to use water to clean. And here's where they first get induced with water. So they're running along here on the top, and then they get dropped into a rock tank. And what the rock tank does is that it actually, what happens, it's kind of an interesting concept. Walnuts float, but rocks do not float. So it goes in this water, and the rocks sink to the bottom. And if you actually come back over here, we'll look over here real quickly. This is what comes out of the rock tank. So anything that's real heavy, sometimes you get some walnuts, you get rocks, you get debris. If there's anything real heavy, that's what comes out of it. So it's separating any heavy material from the walnuts, because walnuts are lighter than actual most rocks, if you think about it that way. After they come out of the rock tank, they go into we call the actual huller. And the problem with the huller is you can't really see how it works because it's actually running right now. We can't really pull it off. But what happens is in this huller, if you look at it, you see all these little holes in it right here? That is what the huller is doing. The huller actually grabs the hole like this and it peels it. Like that. That's how the huller actually works. Inside that huller, there are thousands and thousands of little tiny metal strips. That's how you can see the little holes there. It's grabbing at the green hole and peeling it off. Now, it doesn't get 100% of that because some walnuts are different sizes, different shapes,
and different variations, different angles coming in, and sometimes you will break walnuts. So you have to make sure that the huller brush are adjusted properly. After it comes out of the huller, comes back up on these ag web belts, and then it goes through another aspirator. This aspirator is a second vacuum. And what the second of these vacuums do is I'm going to go on this side. We're going to go on this side and actually go look at what this aspirator does. What the aspirator does is that it takes out any bad walnuts, any light walnuts, it takes them out. So like these halves and stuff like that. Watch, I'll crack that walnut, and it's bad. This walnut looks good on the outside. Looks like a perfectly good walnut, right? It's bad. That's what the aspirator does. And this is like another giant vacuum. So the same one that was open at the beginning, it was the exact same thing here. Only this, so you have two of them. So that way you get as much of those bad walnuts and light debris out as much as possible because you want it clean. It's pretty interesting because you can always look good walnut on the outside, good walnut on the inside. So that's what the aspirators do. Then after the aspirator comes, I think, one of the most interesting parts of the whole huller. This piece here is called the electronic eyes. These are sorters. Back in the old days, you had 20, 30 sorters, people sorting walnuts on the belt. Today, I have 2 or 3. What these eyes do here is that they are sending a beam of light onto these walnuts. And you see how you can see all these fingers here. And if you watch real closely, you'll see them move real fast. In a blink of an eye, you'll see them move. And what that's doing is that the eyes are actually showing a beam of light onto the walnuts. I don't know if you guys can see it very well there, but you can look on the walnuts. You can actually see on the walnuts there's a beam of light on every single walnut. And what's happening is that what that does is that these cameras are sending a beam of light onto that walnut. And the walnut is reflecting a light back to the camera. And if the camera sees a certain color, here it's black or green. The camera knows to kick the walnut out. And it uses that by using air. And that's what the fingers do down here on the bottom. So if there's a light, so the walnut comes down and the camera sees a bad light, either black or green, these eyes, this finger right here, will shoot at the exact moment and kick that walnut out. And if you watch it, you can see the walnuts getting kicked out in the bottom. They're all getting kicked out. Some of them that are real bad are green or black, and they go down to the sorting, another belt over here. And what we do with these ones is that they get rerun at a later date and in a separate container because sometimes the color's not as good or they got worms or sometimes there's something wrong with that walnut, and we do want those to be mixed together. So that is why we separate them. Those electronic eyes can actually see a walnut. I believe it's 60 per second they can kick out. If I remember correctly, I think it's 60 nuts per second that those sorters could kick out. So in 1001, they could kick 60 walnuts out. That is how fast. After that, after the electronic eyes, they go to a sorting table here with all the girls here sorting. And then that's the final process. So now you look at it going up the elevator. Now you look at them going up the elevator here. They're all clean walnuts. Nice, clean walnuts, and they're going into the drying barn to be dried. So that's kind of the small process. That's just the process of how it's done here and how all the walnuts are cleaned out and sorted and looked at before they're ready to go into the drying barn. Once they go into the drying barn, which will be there in just a minute, it will show you a different process of what is done. Alrighty, now we're going to go, actually this is kind of part 2. This is the second stage of the hulling process. And this is where we go into the drying barn. So those walnuts that you saw going up that elevator or going across this cross conveyor up top, and these cross conveyors are about 3 feet wide. And now we're going into the drying barn. So what happens here in the drying barn is that the walnuts come in here to be dried. The meat inside the walnut needs to be dried. The reason for that is that if you have a wet walnut, it actually molds and comes rancid. So we have to dry them. So here they are coming into the line being dried. Each one of these bins holds 6 tons. If you don't know what 6 tons is, that's 12,000 pounds, more or less. And this is what they are looking like when they come into the plant after the line has been full. Nice, fresh, beautiful, clean walnuts. You can see them coming down on the top, and that's how they fill up. And every single ranch that comes in here has a name on it, like this ranch right here. This is called Little Dog. Little Dog, the variety, what date it came in, and the time. That way we keep accurate records of what ranch came in at what time of day, so we know what needs to go out at certain times and certain days. One of these lines, this whole line here, can hold 60 tons altogether. And in this barn, there are actually 8 lines. So that's 480 tons of walnuts. And in one day, we could fill up this whole barn. So there's a lot of walnuts that comes in here in any given day. So then these walnuts here are actually dry. And how you can tell from a dry walnut is if you break them apart. And this is called the membrane on the walnut. Now see how it breaks like that? That tells you that the walnut is dry and ready for shipping. Sometimes you can find another one that's not dry. So you'd always try to get the membrane there. You see the membrane, and you just do that, and it breaks off. That tells you the walnut is dry and ready to go. Let's see if I can find a better one for you. There you go. That's the cell membrane, the membrane inside. You break it like that, how it snaps in half like that and just breaks off. That tells you the walnut's dry and it's ready to be going. When they first come in, they're not that dry. That membrane is very rubbery and very bendy, and it will never break like that. So that was where we have to come in here and dry them down. Because like I said, the reason for we dry them is for the shelf life in the stores. Because if you don't dry them, they'll go moldy, they'll go rancid. They'll do a lot of bad things that you don't want. So the question is, how do we know when the moistures are right? If you actually look at these 2 panels inside these empty bins, these are the moisture readers. What these do is that they sense the air passing by these 2 panels. They sense the hot air passing by, and they calculate how much moisture is in the air, and that gives me a reading on this computer screen. So you can look at some of these here. It's really kind of difficult to see here, but you see how it says D on these. That means those are dry. The W means they're wet. Then if you see the E here, that means they're empty, meaning nothing's inside of them. So I can come here and look at one here. This is one we just put in this morning. See, I have it set at 7.5, and right now it's at 99.9 because it's completely 100% wet. But if you go back to one that is dry here, you see how low it is now? It's at 4.9. But the thing is with walnuts is that these are heated by air. They're dried by air. And when you dry these by air, you are pushing hot air past them. So you have to adjust to where you think the walnut's going to be dry. In the walnut industry, you want the walnuts to be 6.5 to 8.0 is where you want them. But there's so many variables that come in play on how much on the age of the ranch, how green they were when they came in. There's so many variables. Sometimes these walnuts, I can dry them in about 4 or 5 hours. Other times it takes 40 hours. So this is another one, as you can see. It's a different ranch. Some of these different walnuts, but the same thing that happens, same idea that goes through. You check the membrane. I can get it out. It all breaks up like that real easy. Kind of breaks up, breaks apart. It's all dry. You will actually see this button right here. See how it's blinking? That's telling me that that bin was done, but it couldn't close the doors because it could only have a certain amount open. It needs a certain amount open every time for safety reasons. So that is sending a signal to the fan to shut the whole line off, shut the whole fan and burner, shut everything off because the line is done. That is all automatic. That has just been coming out in the last
7, 8 years. It's relatively new technology, and it works tremendously very well. But this actual whole system here is for the moisture readers inside the bin, and those doors control the bin. They control the doors on the inside. They control the moisture. So then the question is, okay, we're done with the walnuts. Walnuts are dried. Where do they go? Well, if you look over here, these walnuts are being taken out and loading into another truck. These came in yesterday or the day before and were dried during the night. And now you look at them, they are coming out of the bins at the bottom, going onto another belt, and they're going to be loaded into another truck. And that truck is going to take them to a certain buyer in which the owner wants his walnuts to go, his or her walnuts to go. And so now these walnuts that are all dried, they went through the huller, went through all the processes, went through the drying process. They are ready to be shipped. They are ready to get out of the huller. And so now they are coming out, going onto a belt here. They go on to another elevator, and then they get loaded into another truck here. And these walnuts, and every truck that comes out of here has to have paperwork. So this is what the paperwork says. This is Clyde Wheeler, Variety Chandler, and he's going to Naragi Farms. Every single truck that leaves this hauler has to have a paperwork like that, so we know exactly what truck went where at what time, what day, and everything. So then if you come outside, you can see the walnuts being loaded into another truck. And he's going to a certain buyer so they can crack them and package them and ship them out to the world. And that's really the extent of a hauler here. If there's any questions, we'll be happy to ask them.
Wow. Well, that's quite the process that a walnut goes through to be processed and ready to be shipped out for consumption. We have received, gentlemen, oodles and oodles of questions, and I know we're trying to
Good. So
I'm going to call this rapid fire questions. We're just going to answer a few that we can. For those participating, we will capture the videos or the questions, and the majority of them, if they're similar, we'll get answers to you and email them back out with the recording. So guys, are you ready? Rapid fire. Number one, how long does it take for the processing of the walnuts to happen?
The processing of the walnuts actually does not take that long. From the time they come out of the truck to the time they go into the barn to be dried, it's maybe 2 minutes, 3 minutes at most. And then they go in there to stay dry. To dry, it takes anywhere from 12 to 14, 16, 18 hours. But by the next day, they're out of that barn. So by the time they come in, by the time they leave, it's less than 24 hours.
Perfect. How do you know if a walnut is good?
Well, you can look at it as one way to look at it. No, I don't know exact. I don't have these tools or technology to actually to look at every single walnut inside the meat and see it. I can only do with certain things, like take the light ones out, and the trash ones out, or the broken ones out.
If you can
what he means,
second, we're picking
what he means by the light ones though is the nut is shriveled up inside, or there's no meat in it, so that the suction fan actually sucks that nut out and it goes to the trash because there's obviously no meat in it.
And the meat is the part of the walnut that we eat, correct?
That's the part we want.
That's the part we want.
Okay. Yep. And then what are some other uses for walnuts? We have someone who wants to know if they can put it on their ice cream.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Oh, absolutely.
Yes.
Great.
Actually, most ice cream parlors do have crushed almonds or walnuts that you can sprinkle on there. It's actually good. Really good.
But
there's also
expire?
Go ahead.
Do walnuts expire?
Yes.
Walnuts do expire.
Usually about shelf life is usually about 8 to 12 months, 8 to 10 months at most. That's about it.
And he's going to tell you right now that the most important part is to freeze your walnuts as soon as you get them. Put them in the freezer, bring them out when you need them. They're nice and crunchy, and they taste really fresh.
Elia wants to know, how long have you guys been in business? Rob, I think you're still muted. We have someone who wants to know, how long have you guys been in business?
1984 is when he started, I believe, was his first one of his first ranches. So if you do that and do the math, 36 years, if I'm not mistaken.
Awesome.
Actually, it was before that. We were actually started before that, but I want to go back to that walnut freezing program. Yeah, you have to freeze it. That'll reserve that flavor. A lot of people think a walnut has a tannic, acidic flavor to it. And to tell you the truth, if the walnut is right and it is not gone and aged, it's been frozen, they have more of a buttery flavor and a crisp flavor. And they're very, very appealing for taste. But a lot of the walnuts you get in restaurants today are not in very good shape, and they give the walnut a bad name. Freeze the walnuts. You get them, freeze them, and they'll last over a year.
Okay, we have more questions, so we're gonna go rapid fire, guys. Do one of you have a walnut in your pocket? Someone wants to see you crack a walnut. Get real close.
Cracked one already. I cheated and I cracked it for you. So that's the walnut inside. I already cracked it.
They want to see how you crack. Okay, perfect. So they just crunch it in their hands. They take the palm of their hands and they crunch it.
Okay.
So I actually just, so say this is a whole walnut. I put it right here in my hole or my palm of my hand and just press it and it cracks and then you can actually just twist it off. And right there is a nice walnut.
How many times do you water your orchard?
So the young orchard here that's 1 year old, with this type of sprinkler system gets about a 24-hour period of sprinkler water once a week. But it depends too on the weather. I mean, when it's July and it's 110 degrees out, we'll do it more often. When it's right now, we're not watering at all.
Rapid fire.
Awesome. So if you guys can take a step apart real quick, we can pick up each other's audio. Are there different varieties of walnuts?
Yeah, there's probably
20,
30 different varieties, but there's really only half a dozen main varieties that anybody really wants to grow because of their production, good color, good taste, good size.
Okay, guys, I think that's all the time we have. We have a couple of housekeeping things to go over. So thank you so much for our friends over at Growers Choice and Triple L Hulling.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Krista, I got one more thing. I got one more thing for you. Everybody needs to look at all the health benefits of a walnut, and everybody thinks it's only the omega-3s. There are a tremendous amount. Look up walnut health benefits, Google it, and it'll come up. There's 15 or so big benefits of walnuts.
Yeah, and all of our teachers have gotten information from walnuts.org as well, so that you guys can go and review. So I appreciate all of you guys being here today. Just a shout out to our sponsors. This program, AgVenture, is sponsored in part by the County of San Joaquin and the Agricultural Commissioner's Office. We're also sponsored by the Specialty Crop Block Grant. And then on the next slide, you'll see all of our independent and private sponsors who help make this possible. As you know, we are adjusting just like you guys are because of the COVID-19 pandemic, and it takes extra resources to be able to bring you these. We certainly hope that you liked this experience. Just real quick, while I have still over 300 of you on here, your normal AgVenture experience will be held in a similar fashion. So you can see the dates listed. Those are tentative based on your go back to school plans. But basically the presentation part of your normal AgVenture field trip will be loaded onto our website, www.sjcagventure.com. It's on the screen. And so you will be able to go there 2 weeks prior to the event, view all of your presentations ahead of your normal AgVenture experience. And we're going to be bringing you the display portion live, just like we did today, to you in your classroom so that you guys can still experience all AgVenture has to offer. And we'll be hosting another virtual farm trip during Almond Blossom in February. And we'll learn about almond blossom and bees and the role that they have in pollination and bringing you almonds and other nuts and fruits and vegetables to our plate. So thank you guys so much. We're hoping to wrap this up. Again, if you have any last minute questions, throw them in the question box and we will get those answered and sent back out to you. Thank you guys so much for joining, and we hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.